Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Chase with Jace. As y'all can all know, the Tigers are on their chase, hopefully in the SEC championship, which is pretty crazy. You go back a couple weeks ago after the Florida State game, and you're thinking, oh, it's going to be a rough season for those LSU Tigers, and the sky is falling. There are a lot of chicken littles out there. You know, the sky is falling. Everything is not going to go right? This is a season, maybe too many high expectations for LSU, and you go look fast forward 2 weeks later, guess what you get? LSU wins convincingly on the road against Mississippi State. You saw what the SEC is kind of looking like. You see Alabama not having a great showing against South Florida this past week. You see Texas A&M lose to Miami. You see Georgia struggle in the first half. You're thinking, man, LSU may be the best team in the SEC. So it just comes to show you how much a difference a couple weeks makes. And I certainly wasn't one of those guys. And if you watched the show from before, I certainly wasn't one of those guys that was feeling like the sky was falling or anything after the Florida State game. I really thought that LSU was really right there with Florida State, especially in the first half. You look at LSU was actually winning that game in the first half, and it should have been by more. Florida State just turned on in the fourth quarter, especially. If you really take away that fourth quarter, it was a very competitive game through three quarters. So it just got out of hand for LSU in those final 15 minutes. But you saw what this team could potentially be, and what they did against Mississippi State. We'll go into it. We'll break it down. For more information about this game and what my thoughts were about this game, you can go to our website. You can see it in front of me and behind me. GridironFootballUSA.com is the website. I've already written articles about first the reaction article, the post-game article. You can go back and read that, watch all the highlights, check out all the stats, all you need to know about that game, and go to our website there. And then also you can check my 5 takeaways from that game and what I think that game means for LSU moving forward. But as far as a recap from Mississippi State, we'll go into it. We're not going to have a particularly long show here today, but Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors. What do you have to say about them two and how they play, right? Both are the co-SEC Offensive Players of the Week. LSU won the game, by the way. 41-14 was the final score. It was pretty much domination from the very start to the very finish of that game. Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, they became, I believe, the 5th duo to win the SEC Co-Offensive Player of the Week. And actually 3 of them came by LSU guys. So back in the 80s, Tommy Hodson, Wendell Davis, those two back in the 80s. And that was another quarterback-receiver duo. Then you had Joe Burrow and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They're both co-SEC Offensive Players of the Week. And now the third duo is a quarterback-receiver duo in Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors. What can I say about Jaden Daniels in the game that he had? 30 for 34 for 367 yards, 2 touchdowns, also had 64 yards rushing on the ground and 2 touchdowns. What was most impressive about this was that he set an LSU completion record. And keep in mind, they had Joe Burrow at quarterback a couple years ago breaking records. That's how great of a performance that truly was from Jaden Daniels. 88%, so a minimum of 25 passes. That was an LSU record for LSU completion record. So very amazing there. Great performance by Jaden Daniels. And what was even more amazing about it was that it wasn't just dink and dunk passes. Now, Jaden completed his first 13 passes, but some of those passes were deep shots. There were deep throws, including the one to Malik Neighbors on 4th and 7. LSU went for 4th and 7, and they attacked, and they found Malik Neighbors one-on-one, and Jaden put it right in the breadbasket. It was a beautiful throw by Jaden Daniels, that is for sure. And that's what made it even more impressive about it, because a lot of them were tight window throws. He was getting hit. He was getting pressured. It's hard to do something like that when you're against 7-on-7, when you're against air. it's really hard to do that when you do something like that. It's hard to go perfect when you're going against air. And Jaden Daniels was pretty much perfect in that game, Mississippi State. That type of game shows you how dangerous and really the strides he has made in his second year as a passer. You can see that he's worked on. You can say all y'all want about Grambling and that, oh yeah, you're supposed to do that against Grambling, but you can tell that game he made really the right strides that were taken as a passer. And you saw it a little bit against Florida State. I mean, really, it wasn't go back and look. There were a couple drop passes. Now, a couple throws could have been better, yes, but he has, you can tell he's made the right strides there as a passer when throwing the football. And then what can you say about Malik Neighbors, right? And what he was able to do. 10 catches for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half. That was just the first half. If this game was a competitive, close game, I mean, there was a good chance that Malik Neighbors was going to break the single-game record by Kayshon Boutte if this was a competitive, close game from there on out. But LSU pretty much ran away from Mississippi State. He finished with 13 catches for 239 yards and 2 touchdowns. Was another instance why Malik Neighbors is up there when it comes to one of the top receivers in the entire country, and he showed up and he put himself firmly in the conversation with a performance like that. Also, defensively, the pass rush certainly showed up. 4 sacks, Major Burns, Harold Perkins, Mekhi Wingo, Savion Jones, all were involved in those sacks. 4 quarterback hurries. And really, Will Rogers, who is the most veteran quarterback out there in the SEC, he looked lost. He really did. And you can tell that they're changing the offense when they're playing the air raid offense. Now they're trying to go to a more conventional pro-style attack. You can tell that there's still a lot of work in that transition there for Mississippi State. Only 107 yards passing throughout the day. Remember, coming in the game, the secondary was kind of an issue. Especially in the first game against Florida State and those first 2 drives against Grambling. But really the pass rush, the front 7, we're talking a lot of high praise about this front 7, what they can do all preseason long, and for them to have a showing like that, it was very great to see that defensive line getting pressure, those linebackers getting pressure. And that's what made that performance even more unique and really not really expected going in, because LSU was missing 2 of its defensive starters in Omar Spates, and they're veteran guys, Omar Spates and Greg Brooks. Now, before I go into what I was going to say, Greg Brooks, if y'all just haven't heard about this morning, Greg Brooks, he had a brain tumor. So that was the big news this morning. I saw it from Jock Doucet this morning. That was reported. And the Brooks family, commented on the issue and the reason why he missed out on the game. So Brian Kelly talked a little bit about it this morning too. They saw some symptoms. He was getting pretty dizzy, I think, on Wednesday last week during practice, and they obviously got an MRI to check it out, and they found a brain tumor when doing the MRI. So heard that the surgery was successful. So if you're watching this, make sure to continue to pray for Greg Brooks and his family for what they're really going through. So all our prayers are with Greg right now as they're doing something with that. That's terrible to hear. Not only for him, because I know he wants to get back on the football field, but just in general, you hate to see that happen to anybody. So prayers go out to Greg and his family, and knowing what kind of player and person Greg is. He's a fighter. He ain't going to let that get to him. I know that because he's just as strong as anybody out there. So team captain, a special football player, and hopefully he can get back to supporting the Tigers on the sidelines in some way this year, if he cannot obviously go. But really prayers go out to Greg and his family for what they're dealing through right now. But going back to my point, so Greg Brooks, Omar Space was out. So you needed young guys to come in and step in, and boy, did they. Whit Weeks in particular really stepped up, had himself a great day. I think he set the tone pretty much from the very beginning of the game. LSU gave up a first down on the first play of the game. The second play, it was a TFL by Whit Weeks. He led the team in tackles with 8, had a tackle for loss, QB hurry. He was pretty much all over the field, looked comfortable out there. Like last year, that was a big headline, right? A lot of freshmen playing early on. And this is also similar to this year. So if you look at it, man, freshmen all over the place, right? You look at not only Whit Weeks, you look at Ryan Yates, who was playing in the back end on the defensive side of the football. You look at the offensive side of the football. You can look at Lance Hurd. You can look at Caleb Jackson. We're going to go into Caleb Jackson a little bit in the run that made national headlines this past weekend. But Matt Markway, he made a start. Mason Taylor was not available, and that's what made this offense even more scary, because Jaden Daniels did all this without Mason Taylor in the lineup, which makes this offense even scarier knowing that. You just kind of look across the board. And Deshaun Womack got some reps as well on the defensive line. He's a 5-star freshman that has a lot of great athletic ability. He's getting involved there. So Brian Kelly's not afraid to go out there and play true freshman. So that, as a matter of fact, that is definitely true. So he's not afraid to get out there and do that. Dominating win, 41-14. You can go to gridironfootballusa.com for more of that game. So I have 5 takeaways from that game, and you can go and read all 5 on our website. That's gridironfootballusa.com. All right, next we're going to talk about some tidbits. We're going to go through, appreciate our producer Sean for getting some of these as well. Some tidbits from Brian Kelly's press conference. So we're going to go through, I picked about 5 of them. The first one is actually going to be just a quote about the game in general against Mississippi State. Dominant performance on both sides of the football. LSU was a preseason top 5 team. So coming in, we were trying to see where can we see that on both sides of the football. We finally saw that in Mississippi State. Here's Brian Kelly recapping what was a great day for the LSU Tigers.
Playing an 11 a.m. game requires, for our team to think the right way. I thought they did a great job of thinking right about the trip itself. It's easy to think about how difficult and how early, and instead they thought about it as, a great opportunity to be the first game up, to go on the road and play 4 quarters with the competitive edge that they've been looking for in terms of playing for 4 quarters. There's always that sense of playing early and getting back home. So I thought they did a great job of, thinking the right way. And then, you have to flip that switch from, preparation to performance. And to do that, you've got to play with a sense of urgency, and you've got to have the emotional control, but play with an edge. And they got off to a fast start, played with great effort and enthusiasm. There was really an attention to the details out there, and finished strong. So that's what we're looking for from our football team. That's an identity that we want to create each and every week, and certainly one that we believe that we can be. Now it's about building on that and looking for that consistency.
So that was Brian Kelly talking about recapping the Grambling game, not the Grambling game, the Mississippi State game. What a game that was for LSU. Both sides of football. Everything that was working was working that afternoon for LSU, and gave pretty much everything that you expected. Harold Perkins started to feel comfortable going the outside, and being the player that we pretty much expected going into the season. Him being more comfortable on the edge. Jaden Daniels taking leaps and bounds as a passer. Defensive line, defensive front, creating pressure. These are all the things that we were expecting from this LSU team that showed up. It was validation about what kind of team LSU can be. It's validation saying that maybe the media, maybe a lot of people were not completely wrong about what this LSU football team can do coming in as a top 5 team in the preseason. Will be interesting if they can carry that forward and move on as SEC, we're kind of like in the meat and the grind of SEC play coming up as LSU goes back home this Saturday against Arkansas coming up. And then we're going to have some tidbits about that game coming up, a big rivalry game, the Golden Boot Trophy on the line too. And before we go into Arkansas, here's another clip about Brian Kelly. I already mentioned the stats about Jaden Daniels and what his stat line was, and which was a phenomenal game. 30 for 34, 4 touchdowns, over 400 yards total offense. You know the numbers. Here was what Brian Kelly had to say. He can back it up about what kind of performance he saw and how his quarterback has developed this year in Jaden Daniels.
Do you ever think about over the last year and a half where you would be without Jaden Daniels?
Yeah, he's been outstanding. Obviously, we've won a lot of football games, and certainly his ability to win the game with his feet, or in this instance, throwing the football and running the ball. He was as good as anybody in the country, and we've seen a development now that we were in week 3. I think if you look at week 3 last year, and was it the week we threw for 85 yards? I think it was, and now he's throwing for 30 for 34. So we've seen incredible development at the position, and I think that's what's more exciting than where would we be without Daniels. Is it's fun to watch the development of a quarterback in that respect.
So the progression Jaden Daniels has shown, I mean, the question was asked about where would y'all really be without Jaden Daniels, and I mean, I know he's got a lot of heat, with fans, and because with Garrett Nussmeier having another talented quarterback behind him, and in every case scenario, the backup quarterback is always the most popular person on the team when it comes to the fans. And I told y'all, so I answered a question on one of the Chase with Jace episodes. Somebody asked, is there a quarterback controversy? And there's not. I mean, Jaden Daniels is your guy. He's got you to the SEC championship game last year with that 3-game stretch that he's shown. And he's your guy this year. He's shown that. He's just been even keeled through this whole process. Nothing really faces him, which is a great quality to have, especially if you're a quarterback. And you saw the leaps and bounds he's made as a passer. So the rest of the way, there's no doubt about it. If anybody had any doubt, Jaden Daniels put pretty much an end to that with the performance he had against Mississippi State. So let's see if he continues to progress and keep on the positive momentum that he's had from a great performance like the one he did just this past Saturday. We go to another quote from Brian Kelly. And this one is about the linebacker depth. And I just mentioned about Whit Weeks and what he was able to do. But, with 8 tackles as a freshman, led the team in tackles, had TFL, had a quarterback hurry. During my first half takeaways, I posted that on X now and on Facebook about my first half takeaways, and one of them was Whit Weeks and how LSU might have found something in Whit Weeks. But Brian Kelly says it's not just Whit Weeks filling in for Spates, but it's the impact that Greg Penn. He's been a very underrated piece to why LSU has been able to fill in so nicely with Omar Spates being out.
Here, you mentioned Spates being probable for this week. How, in your experience, have you handled having a young guy like Weeks with Spates having so much experience and just handling kind of that role going forward with those guys and having, obviously, playable depth?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the guy that's really settled this for us in terms of, whoever he's been with has been Greg Penn. Greg's been outstanding. He's a settling factor out there for us. He gets guys lined up. He communicates very well. And that's a guy that we want to keep on the field. So, we'll be moving guys around to complement that. And I think, the best rotation keeps Greg on the field, and then we'll move guys in and out with him.
So that was Brian Kelly talking about the linebacker depth and how much really that not Omar Spates, but Whit Weeks and Greg Penn has really been able to fill in those roles, especially with them being out. Now I'm going to have one more clip. Let's see what we got here. I believe this is Yeah, about Caleb Jackson. I mean, we're going to go into another freshman, right? Caleb Jackson, what he was able to do was pretty impressive for what he was able to do. Just kind of looking at the numbers, it was a great performance. But what took everybody by surprise was Caleb Jackson doing his Leonard Fournette impersonation, right? He was trucking a Mississippi State defender. Really made national headlines with that. Clearly, physically, Caleb Jackson is your best running back on the team. Just as far as the ceiling, the upside. But compared to the other running backs, he's probably the most raw running back. Covering him in high school at Liberty High School in Baton Rouge. He was part of a program that was just starting up again. Previously, they were Lee High School. Had a couple JV seasons with Caleb Jackson. And if you remember, I was actually at his first game of the year against Southern Lab last year, and he got hurt in that game and missed the rest of his senior season. So he didn't play his whole senior season. So Brian Kelly's here talking about how there's some other stuff for Caleb Jackson. There's no question about his talent and what he can do, but there's some other things that Caleb Jackson needs to learn in terms of blitz pickup and other nuances of the game that the other running backs are ahead of. So Brian Kelly, very high on Caleb Jackson physically, as we all are, but there's some other things that he needs to do in order to get even more and more reps at the running back position.
Speaking of freshmen, of all the great plays you guys had Saturday, the one that got the most attention in replay was Caleb Jackson running over the safety right in front of your bench. I was kind of curious what went through your mind when that play happened, and we see media fans, fans, we see a player who's making great individual plays. Do you see the same thing, or you see someone who's still developing and still has a lot to learn, or where are you with him and what he can contribute to the team?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious answer is physicality, explosiveness, but a young man that is still learning how to play this game. Remember now, if you look back on his high school career, he was not a 4-year player even in high school. So, he's learning how to play the game every time he steps on the field. And he's terrific to coach. I mean, the great part about it is he doesn't have much baggage. He's learning a lot about the game as we go along. We're talking to him about some of the rules as it relates to kickoff. If the impetus of the ball goes into the end zone and it hits you, you don't have to take it out. These are foreign things to him. So, just teaching him the game and him learning the game is kind of where we're at with him. But it's easy to see the raw physical ability, but there's so much more to that, and that's if you, and I know you did, you watched the game closely, you saw what Diggs and Williams were able to do in third down protections against a very difficult scheme. Caleb is not ready for that. He will get ready for that, but he's just not there yet.
Hey, Coach, over here. Just building off of that, you talked about playing against some mobile quarterbacks early in the season, and y'all played against Will Rogers, had a lot of success, maybe not as mobile as the other quarterbacks y'all played against, but what are some things that you can take away that can translate to the success y'all had on Saturday against Will Rogers, against another mobile quarterback?
Well, I think fundamentally, a lot of the things that we talk about are, keeping the ball in, leverage the defense, keeping the ball inside the pocket, making quarterbacks earn it instead of, giving up, easy, rush lanes. All those things that are the fundamentals of playing good defense. We weren't on point early on. We were much better on Saturday. When we leveraged the ball, when we held the point, when we did our job, we made it very difficult for Mississippi State. We're going to look to do the same.
Just in case y'all didn't notice that, yes, I added another clip in there at the very end. I had to ask my question, add my question in there too, talking about really the pass rush of Brian Kelly and how that can translate into playing against a mobile quarterback in KJ Jefferson. Because it's one thing to pin your ears back and sack a quarterback that's not as mobile as some of the other quarterbacks you're playing, like Will Rogers. you can say all the numbers you want about Will Rogers and the success he's had during his SEC career, but he's not as mobile as the other quarterbacks are around the league. And LSU's had some problems against mobile quarterbacks. You can go back to the first game of the year against Jordan Travis. They've had problems trying to contain him. And you can look at Miles Crawley from Grambling. They've had problems with him as well. So Brian Kelly even said that in his post game. He was very proud of the way the pass rush showed up and the defensive front played. But Will Rogers wasn't one of those mobile quarterbacks, so it was easier for LSU to get there and get home and bring quarterbacks like that down. So can that pass rush, that success from last Saturday show up, because you're playing against another very athletic, very mobile quarterback that can beat you with his legs in KJ Jefferson. So, and that will transition into the Golden Boot Trophy this week for Arkansas and LSU. LSU is a home game, about 2-1 SEC West teams. LSU comes in with a record of 2-1. They were the number 12 team in the country. They moved up 2 spots in the AP poll, and they are the highest ranked win-loss team, and they are the second highest ranked SEC team behind Georgia. So LSU's still very in the mix early on for all the goals they want to accomplish. You can go and look at what happened in the SEC this week. Alabama did not look good against South Florida. Texas A&M, they lost to Miami. You can kind of go. I mean, you can say LSU lost to Florida State, but LSU's in a good position right now. Georgia, they don't look invincible. They were down 14-3 against South Carolina in the first half. So you kind of look all across the SEC. It's pretty much wide open. It's pretty much open for anybody that wants to grab the SEC right now. So we'll see who in fact does. And based off LSU's performance, you can make an argument that LSU has an argument that they may be the best team in the SEC. And so we'll see if that continues to progress, and can they continue to string along a couple of big performances along the way. Now LSU, this is a very dangerous spot for LSU though, because they play against an Arkansas team that is coming off a loss against BYU. A game which Arkansas probably should have won, because Arkansas had double-digit leads twice during that game. So this is, for Arkansas, they let that one slip through their fingers. And when you're playing against a desperate team, a motivated team, a team that felt like they just let one slip away, that is very dangerous, because they are going to be very motivated coming in to knock off their rivals LSU. So if you're LSU, the biggest thing, and it's a big thing that Brian Kelly has continued to preach as we go through it, and that big thing is continue to keep that competitive edge. That competitive edge on the field, can that translate early in games like it did against Mississippi State? You can tell early on LSU was amped up. I mean, Harold Perkins was really getting in the face of a lot of Mississippi State offensive linemen. You saw Emory Jones get in the face with a couple of defensive linemen. I mean, Will Campbell was actually pulled out the game because of some of the penalties he was making. So there is a balance you got to take. You definitely want to be aggressive. You definitely want to be hungry. You definitely want to show the opponent that you mean business and you're ready to lace them up and ready to battle. But at the same time, you don't want to be too soft, like maybe we saw, too reluctant, too gentlemanlike is what Brian Kelly had to say. And maybe in the Florida State game. They didn't get any penalties, but a lot of it was just Florida State showing LSU that, hey, we're here to play. And that's what LSU did. So can they have that competitive edge? Can they be motivated? Can it be up to the task early in this game against Arkansas? That's going to be very interesting to see. And seeing how, because it's really hard, especially for college football, it's hard to keep that level of play each and every week, because there's a lot of circumstances, especially with these college players. There's a lot of things going on. You got school, you got football, you got class. It's hard for especially young guys to get up every single Saturday. So we'll see who's going to be the more aggressive team, who's going to really want to be there the most. So that's going to be very interesting, especially LSU's just off a high. That's what's the biggest thing about it. LSU's off a high. It's easy to get up for something, especially when you come off a loss, when you come up a game where everybody's kind of down you. It's really easy to go up for that. But how do you handle success? That's going to be the thing what LSU has to deal with. How do they handle success against this game, against Arkansas? a quick recap on Arkansas coming in from the last week loss. They're 2-1. Sam Pittman's in another year with LSU and Arkansas. They play against Keaton Slovis, who's a BYU quarterback, had 167 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. KJ Jefferson, it was a rough day. If you're LSU, it's defensive line, you're looking like, okay, there's an opportunity for us to go out and have a similar day like we did against Mississippi State. Because KJ Jefferson was sacked 3 times, fumbled twice, and without Rocket Sanders, Rocket Sanders is one of the most valuable players in the SEC. With him being out there, Arkansas thrives when they're a running football team, when they run the football a lot and they run a high success rate, because that helps KJ Jefferson even more become a player that we're accustomed to seeing him be. But if they're more of a drop-back passing team, they have to throw the football a little bit more, they have to be more predictable, then we're going to see Arkansas not have the type of success that we've seen them have offensively like they did last year. And the year before that, when they were running the football, when they had that 1-2 punch with KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders. KJ Jefferson finished with 25 of 36. 261 yards and a touchdown. A lot of penalties for Arkansas. They had 14 penalties in that football game against BYU. And the defense. The defense had a chance to really put this one on ice. There were a couple of times Arkansas had double-digit leads, blew them both. So twice they had double-digit leads in that game. So like I mentioned earlier, this is a game where Arkansas wants to come back and shake off the loss because, hey, I mean, like Brian Kelly said, if you haven't got a chance to hear him, he said in the SEC teleconference that if we played bad against Mississippi State, the players would be pretty much like hitting the walls and like just with their hairs on fire, wanting to come out and play again. Well, Arkansas is in that situation, so if you're LSU, you got to put yourself in Arkansas' shoes. They're desperate. They want to have a bounce-back performance, and you're going to get that. You're going to get Arkansas' best shot. So we'll see how LSU counter punch that when they come to Death Valley, a very tough place, one of the toughest places to play in college football. So my keys to the game in this Golden Boot rivalry, it's always been a close game. No matter how good LSU is or Arkansas is coming to this matchup, Arkansas always gives LSU their very best. The last 3 years have come down to 3 points, 3-point games. LSU won last year 13-10. You may remember that one. That was the Harold Perkins coming out game. Like Harold Perkins coming out showing that, hey, could be the best defensive player in college football. When he had 4 sacks, really pretty much won the game on his own because if you remember, LSU's offense was sputtering a lot throughout the game. Jaden Daniels only threw for 85 yards passing. Josh Williams carried the offense most of the day, had 122 yards rushing and a touchdown in that game. But it was LSU's defense and Harold Perkins that won that on the road. KJ Jefferson actually did not play that game last year. It was Malik Hornsby that played that game, if you can recall. But Arkansas and Sam Pittman, they're going to be motivated. They're going to be giving LSU their very best. So LSU, they better be ready when they play at 6 o'clock at home. So LSU's the better team. They really if LSU plays up to their level, they should be Arkansas. But this game has always been a weird game. It's always been a weird rivalry game. So expect the unexpected. And that's kind of been the motto this year in the SEC because you don't know what to really expect right now in the Southeastern Conference. So LSU has to be ready, but I think they will. I think they're hot right now. They're trending up. So I think they're going to continue that moving forward to another week. But keys to the game, LSU's just got to be disciplined in their pass rush. Do not let KJ Jefferson beat you with his legs. That's kind of my thing there. If you can do that, I think LSU will have a lot of success on the defensive side of the football. Don't get out of your passing rush lanes. So that's my biggest thing on the defensive side of the football. And like I said, and I preach when I'm talking about this game, continue your fast start. Be confident, but not too confident. Don't be overconfident, but be the team, be the aggressor. That's really the key. Be the aggressor like they were against Mississippi State. They showed Mississippi State that, hey, we're here to play, and they showed it through 4 quarters. Be that team again and It's just about the style of football. It's about the competitive edge Brian Kelly keeps preaching to those guys. And then finally, establish a run game. Jaden Daniels, if he continues to stay ahead of the chains, make those great throws that we saw to Malik Neighbors, push the football downfield. That's something that we haven't seen last year as much. He's doing a better job of pushing the ball downfield and attacking, and it showed in the last 2 games against Mississippi State and Grambling. And you can run the football too with Logan Diggs, the offensive line, get physical. It'd be ahead of the chains. This is a very hard offense to slow down LSU. A very hard LSU offense to slow down. So if y'all have any final score predictions, I'm going to go into that. If you go to our website, gridironfootballusa.com, we'll have an LSU Arkansas full in-depth preview coming on our website, gridironfootballusa.com. That preview will be up tomorrow on Thursday. So far, I went and got one question I'll get to. So if y'all have any questions, feel free to comment in the comment section. We'd love to have your responses as well. But I'm going to go with, we have one question so far, and that comes from Cameron, my buddy Cameron Siniglia. Shout out to him. He wanted to ask me who needs to step up in the secondary in the absence of Brooks as we face teams with a stronger passing game. So great question, Cameron. So I mentioned a little bit about it earlier. If you haven't got a chance to hear about Greg Brooks and his status, well, it turns out that Brooks has a brain tumor. It's a severe brain tumor. Brian Kelly said today that they caught it with an MRI in practice on Wednesday because they noticed that he was getting pretty dizzy and there was some telling signs that something wasn't right. So kudos to LSU for addressing that issue. And they saw there was a brain tumor. Greg Brooks had successful surgery. Thank God that he's okay. The family's recovering right now with him. So thoughts and prayers go out to Greg Brooks once again. So if you're watching this, make sure to give your thoughts and prayers to Greg Brooks and his family for what they're going through. That's very tough, especially for a senior team captain. Not only for on the football side of things, but personally, you don't want anybody to go through something like that. So prayers go out to Greg. So in his absence, there was a guy that really impressed me on Saturday. It was Andre Sam. Andre Sam really impressed me from what he was able to do. I saw a lot of that. I actually called it's weird seeing now, but I called Zy Alexander and Andre Sam in the same game, a Southeastern game I called. It was Southeastern and Nice. Now I'm seeing both these guys starting the secondary for LSU. But Andre Sam, the sideline speed I was able to see from him was pretty impressive. Attacking, going downhill. So he's really impressed me and as a guy to keep an eye for. I thought he was very impressive. Brian Kelly's been raving about Ryan Yates. And something I went on with the article that my 5 takeaways was how freshmen were able to step up so veterans can exceed in their roles. Whit Weeks was that middle linebacker, excelled there, was comfortable there. That allowed Harold Perkins to continue to go off the edge and be a presence off the edge. If you look at Ryan Yates, it's another name that I feel like that LSU fans need to keep an eye on for what he was able to do. Because him playing back safety, a free safety, is going to allow Major Burns to do something where he feels really comfortable at and he excels at. And that's being at the line of scrimmage. You saw Major Burns making an impact. He got a sack. He got a couple TFLs. He's very good in the box and being physical and helping you out in the run game and as a blitzer. He excels in that. He is a little bit of liability in coverage, but if you have a guy, Ryan Yates, that excels in that, he can step up. So I'm really liking the LSU secondary and the strides they made from week 2 to week 3. Ryan Yates, Andre Sam, Major Burns in his role. Sage Ryan, you get Sage Ryan as well because of his versatility and what he can do for you and have another veteran player out there. I think those are some of the guys that you're going to be hearing a lot about, especially with Greg Brooks being out too. So those are some of the guys that I would keep an eye on, Andre Sam, Ryan Yates, and Major Burns. So I appreciate that question, Cameron, for tuning in. Well, guys, I think that's going to be pretty much about it. Like I told you, it was going to be a short show here today. When I say short show, it's still like 45 minutes long. So, but appreciate y'all guys, and hopefully y'all enjoy the football game this Saturday. LSU. It's a rivalry game, so buckle up. It's going to be a pretty entertaining football game against Arkansas, like it always is. The last 3 games have been decided by 3 points. Now, if you want to know what my preview is, my prediction on the game, well, I just got to tease it. You got to just go to our website, gridironfootballusa.com, to find out and read about that. So, LSU had a validating win against Mississippi State, 41-14. Let's see this LSU football team starting to come together and starting to put up a couple of wins as we get more and more into the season. LSU starting to get high at the thick of SEC play. So we'll see if LSU can continue that momentum that they set for themselves. Maybe this can be really the big win of the season last week when we talk about how special this LSU football team can really be. Well, guys, hope you all enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and we'll see y'all next week, same time, 12:30. I might be 12:35. Give y'all a couple minutes for the stream to come up and for us to promote a little bit more. But thank y'all for watching. Please like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and make sure to visit our website one more time, gridironfootballusa.com. The Tigers are on the chase, and I'll be trying to follow that chase as well. So for the Chase with Jace, I'm Jace Lejeune. Have yourself a good weekend, and we'll see y'all next week, and hopefully we'll be talking about a Tigers victory.